Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special bonus edition of Unexpected Results, the Eternal Podcast. I am here today with a very special guest that you are all probably very familiar with. Of course, I'm speaking of LightsOutAce. How are you doing today, LightsOutAce?
I am wonderful as always. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So let's just get right into some questions and stuff. You tend to build a lot of utilitarian decks. How do you decide what the project of the day is?
Well, so I'm much more of a deck tuner than a deck builder. I'm not very good at building stuff from the ground up. I'm much better at taking a skeleton and sort of working within that framework and just changing a few cards as I play. So basically, whatever tickles my fancy, I add a list that I like, and then I maybe change a few cards from there, and then just see where the night takes me.
Excellent. Yeah, I can relate to that. More of a tuner than a builder myself as well. If you could design a card, maybe for set 4, for example, what would it be?
So I'm like really big into inevitability and reactive play and stuff. So I'm gonna hope that there's more like control-y cards, but not controls in the sense of like unitless garbage with Rain of Frogs and Asnel's Gift. I think that's bad. Like I want like utility cards for the actual problems that control has. So like my dream card would be like a fast spell for 2 FP where you kill an attachment or draw a card. Or like a fast spell for 2 PT where you counter a spell and return it to the owner's hand and it changes into a random spell of the same cost, like an equivocate for spells, or draw a card. Basically, it's like effects that you want to interact with stuff that's difficult to interact with, but that also has the draw card in like the bad matchups. There's no fail case for the card because you can't play Ruin on ladder, but you could play this Ruin or draw a card for 2. Like that'd be awesome. I'd play the hell out of that card.
I love your idea. I hope Direwolf is listening and they decide to steal that idea and give you no credit.
Yeah, one can only hope.
What is your favorite card in Eternal? Or cards?
Oh man, there's so many cards I like. If I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Sword of the Sky King. I feel like I've probably cast more Sword of the Sky Kings than anyone else. Like won more games of Sword of the Sky King than anyone. I love that card. I put it in a ton of places where it shouldn't go, and it's just great every time. That's
fantastic. Yeah, big fan of that card too. Do we even know who the Sky King is? Do we have any lore on that? I want to learn more personally.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure canonically that I am the Sky King.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, it is your display picture on Discord, so you convinced me.
Look for the LightsOutAce card in set 4.
There we go. On the flip side, what card do you hate the most? Not necessarily that's bad for the game, but one that you hate getting played against you specifically.
There's been a lot of cards that I've hated, but I think Direwolf has done a pretty good job of pruning out the super unfun play pattern cards for the most part. The only card left that I really hate is Xenon Obelisk. I mean, and I can give like the spiel and the rant on it if you want, but like suffice to say that Xenon Obelisk is terrible and should not exist.
I would like to hear more about why you have such disdain for the card.
All right. So there's a certain style of deck that I really hate. Like Rally was a large example, but like Hailstorm being everywhere kind of puts the kibosh on that. Xenon Obelisk is kind of the last like bastion of this effect, where it's just like there's a very narrow range of cards that interacts with your game plan. You have a very small window of time to find them, and if you don't find it, you just die. Xenon Obelisk also tacks some more field beds onto that, where the Xenon Obelisk, like the deck that's playing Xenon Obelisk, if it draws the Obelisk, like you win the game, it's insane. If you don't draw the Xenon Obelisk, like the deck is a 1 out of 10, it just plays some 1/1s and dies and does nothing. So it makes like extremely polarized gameplay. It makes for games where neither player makes any interesting decisions that impact the outcome of the game, and it's also just miserable to play with and against.
That makes sense. Yeah, the deck is often, most of those decks are often fairly embarrassing when you don't draw the Obelisk. On the flip side, I really enjoy that card and usually end up putting it in places where it doesn't belong because my guys are already big. But,
I mean, you win the mirror that way, right?
Exactly. See, you kill their Sandstorm Titans by just attacking. Do you enjoy the lore and the story of the game, or is this just a card game to you?
So I like the lore. Like I always like read all the Magic the Gathering stories and like the good novels. Most of them are bad, but there are a few that are good. And so like I keep up with the lore, like the posts and stuff. I don't like talk about it on the forums much or anything, but I'm interested in the lore in general. I like having characters with personality. It feels more cool to like play Caleb knowing that he just climbed out of the Calderan cradle after fighting his clone than just like, oh, this is a dude with long hair and a harpoon. That's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's you. He looks like you, right?
Slight resemblance. Number one husbando, Caleb.
Did you get a chance to read today's new lore?
Yes, I did. With the basically the princess of Kosul.
Yes,
like leading her army to Argenport.
Yeah, I'm excited to brew around with that card. It looks pretty neat.
Yeah, it gives some redundancy for the like stand together protection from harsh rule effect for like Huru or TJP midrange decks. I think it'll definitely see play.
So do I. I think it's one of the better promos we've had overall. But do you have any hopes for the new set, like new keywords, new tribes, focusing on what we have now and expanding upon it? Like, what are your biggest hopes for the new set?
Well, my biggest hope is actually no more tribal. Like, I think tribal is both pretty miserable in constructed and limited gameplay. It makes the drafting like more on rails than I'd like. I'm just not a fan of tribal. I like more sort of grindy, mid-range and control style of games than like tribal. So I guess my hope would be like less tribal than set 3, modal reactive cards like I talked about before, and like no more pushed charge or Aegis. Like Eternal's already like almost too far and like play charge or Aegis or cost 3 or less, or you just feel like an idiot for playing that unit. So I'd like some good units that don't have charge or Aegis.
That's reasonable. I can respect that. Well, let's move on to the reason that you're here in the first place. This past weekend we had, what was it, week 6 of the ETS Season 2 tournament, and along came you hyped up a deck all week on Twitter and social media and wherever you could, and then you decided, I'm going to take that deck to the tournament, and, well, you had a very good run, we'll say the least. You ended up winning the tournament, first place with the deck near and dear to your heart called Scrappy Hour. Can you tell us about a little bit about your ETS experience? And, you know, we know what you played, and we'll, but before we actually talk about Scrappy Hour, are there any decks that you considered playing before you locked in on Scrappy Hour?
Well, I mean, I thought about playing Moment again, like I had the last couple of ETS that I played in, but, I don't know, I just wasn't winning with Moment as much anymore. I don't know, did you experience that same thing? Like, I played Moment a lot, and like over the last week or two, I've been playing it, like, not winning as much. I can't really put my finger on why. I just feel like Moment hasn't been as good.
Yeah, I felt like it was going to be well positioned for this tournament after the results from the previous week with all the Feln and, tokens or whatever. But, and I feel justified because a few other people brought it as well, so I thought, oh, well, some other players agreed with me. And then I just lost to AP mid-range twice, because that's, I mean, while it's not a bad matchup, it is still, it's AP mid, and, you know, if you stumble, they're gonna punish you. Yeah,
I mean, Argenport mid can beat anything. It's not worse than 40% against anything, even its bad matchups.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically I just play whatever I feel like at the time, and I was kind of riding high on Scrappy Hour, so, I mean, that's why I played Scrappy Hour.
Yeah, and you've been playing the deck for a long time. How did you, can you give us some background on how you, like, came up with the deck in the first place, way back when?
Yeah, so I do this thing where when people subscribe to me on Twitch, I'll play any deck they want for 5 games. Sometimes more if the deck is super sweet, like this one was. It was Zilfran, I believe, who also gave me like a proto version of Scream Reanimator. I mean, I guess Sir Rhino would come with Scream Reanimator like months to me. But yeah, so Zilfran's deck was back in set 2, I believe, and it was Fire Shadow and Primal. The Primal was for Scouting Party to reduce the cost of your hour because like Gear Cruncher didn't exist yet, and Scout didn't exist yet, so it's also for card draw. And it also had Champion of Cunning only for the Shadow side, just as like a permanent rally effect to buff all of your tokens. And the deck was really sweet, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I played it a whole bunch. And then when they revealed all of set 3, it's just like, oh my god, this is so insane. We get to cut the extra faction because Gear Cruncher is like reducing the cost of Witching Hour by so much, just like Scouting Party was, and it synergizes with Scrap Tank, who's already Scrapper makes up for the card draw you lose from Scouting Party, and is like another payoff to replace the Champion of Cunning, and just everything kind of fell into place from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I remember seeing a couple of those builds back then. Yeah, when I didn't look at set 3 at all when it came out. I just started opening packs and reading every single card. And when I opened one of those Gear Crunchers, I was like, this card is awesome. I want to try it at some point. I hope this card is actually good and not just looks good on paper. But yeah, so you ended up bringing the deck this weekend, to, this most recent weekend to the tournament. You won the thing. What decks did you know did not stand a chance this weekend? And what decks were you worried about you might see or have to go up against? What was your expected metagame, I guess?
Yeah. So, I mean, the expected metagame was, like, pretty standard, like Argent Port and Felm and various, like, Praxis and Xenon type decks. And I was hoping to hit the sort of time mid-range type slot, because any ground-based deck, I mean, I guess unless it's, like, super heavy on Overwhelm, but, like, just World Baron and any ground-based deck just gets embarrassed. Like, I played against Ilya K in the last round of the Swiss, and he was playing Dark Praxis. So it's like, it's practice mid, but, like, splashing even more power in there with, like, Ion and Statuary Maiden and stuff. And, like, before the match even started, he's like, well, that's it for my tournament, because that deck just not, just, like, paying a ton of guys, just need to chump block forever, never do anything. They can't interact with my top-end game plan. Like, they don't have sweepers, so Witching Hour just completely shuts them off. Gear Cruncher, like, they can remove the Gear Cruncher, but they still have a whole bunch of grinding to chump block and, like, buy you into your next card. Stone Scar Scrapper is just the complete nut. Like, I compare it to Tavrod, where if you don't kill it immediately, you lose the game and it costs 5. Or you can play it for 6. It's like Tavrod with kick, draw 2 cards right away, and then you get to draw 2 cards every single turn. It never whiffs. It's just Tavrod. And that's another card that, like, those practice type decks and Elysian or Combrade or whatever have trouble dealing with. Like, any time deck is just completely embarrassed. And then likewise, if you are playing completely unitless decks that don't have a Ikaria, like, they're just relying on, like, relic weapons or Black Iron Manacles or whatever, I don't know, to kill you. Like, you just have way too many cards that demand a sweeper on their own for them to grind you out.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, I saw some of your posts over the week, and I considered switching to the deck, but I was like, I have no idea how to build a sideboard or how to sideboard with the deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring your deck list up on the screen for the stream here, and let's go ahead and talk about your sideboard plan a little bit, and how to properly implement the total package into a ranked deck officially.
Yeah, so the deck is actually really, really tight since it's like a synergy-based deck. So on ladder, I wouldn't deviate from the 31 power plus 11 4-ofs. They're pretty neatly packed into nice little packages. Like, you can see, like, there's 16 payoff cards. That's all the cards that cost 5 or more. There's 12 removal spells. There's Madness, Combust, Torch. There's 8 card draw spells, Devour and Quarry, and then there's 12 Grandin makers, Assembly Line, Grandin Drone, and Scrap Tank. Scrap Tank is just a glorified assembly line. Like, sometimes the 3/3 does something, but usually it just dies and you get some Grandin. So you don't worry too much about the Scrap Tank living or dying. And there's a lot of the cards are run double duty too. Like, Scrap Tank is both a Grandin maker and a payoff card, and, like, Devour can be a removal or a card draw type of thing. But the sideboard is where it gets pretty interesting here. And this is a thing that I think gave me a big edge up in the tournament that I don't think a lot of people do, which is when I sat down for 20 minutes and actually wrote down sideboard plans to make sure I had the correct number of slots for each matchup and had the plan that I wanted to enact without any waste. Like, I didn't have too many cards to take out or too many cards to put in, as is the case here, because you never want to take too many cards out. And you should hit me up beforehand, because I'm always willing to share information and stuff like this. Although, probably wouldn't want to run Scrappy Hour just, like, blind, because there are a lot of non-intuitive lines. But yeah, I mean, do we just want to, like, go through my plans for each matchup and why I do those things? I see you have my my little Word document up.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go with that. Let's do that.
Okay, so the first 2 matchups are the 2 that I'm the most afraid of, the Feln and TJP, because they have a bunch of flyers. So Feln, Champ of Cunning, big Aegis flyer that kills you in a couple turns. That's very scary. And Black Sky Harbinger, which is both a big flyer and, like, half a Plague Wind. It kills all of your Grenadin. So here we take out Torch, because it's basically blank, and Madness, because I don't play that many units, and the units they do play are expensive, so you just don't want your hand to get clogged with Madness. And you bring in Treachery, which is our standard answer to Aegis flyers. and some sabotages just to have some more interaction. Like, you don't care too much about Felon's cards, but if you can snag like a Hailstorm or sometimes a removal spell that would hit a Gear Cruncher or a Stone Scar Scrapper, then it's solid. So that's my plan against Felon. And also, so playing like Felon is your second worst matchup, but it's not as bad as it looks on paper. And I mean, we can get into this a little more later, but like if you just play to make your opponent's plays bad against Felon, the matchup isn't that terrible and you can win a lot. But I'll get on that after we're through this. So TJP, the absolute worst matchup. Like they're just a whole bunch of cheap flyers. You can't chump block those flyers. They play stand together to protect their guys from your few removal spells. So here we have to switch gears completely. We transfer to what I like to call Gremoval pile, which is where you want to play like 4 to 6 Grenadins out and then kill the first 5 things they play so that you can just get in there with your little 1/1s and kill them. So we trim on Scrap Tank because it's just a ground guy. Ground guys can't block against them, so it's not very good. Trim a Scrapper because by cutting the Scrap Tank, we don't often have enough fuel for all the Scrappers. And then a couple of Gear Crunchers because, again, ground guys can't block. We're cutting some fuel for it. We don't want all these expensive cards, but we need the Wishing Hours because that gives us both a killer and a flyer. So if you can get the Wishing Hour, you can usually stabilize by like killing one Vulcan Enforcer and blocking their Unseen Commando or whatever. And they bring in the Suffocates, which kills all of their guys, except for some of them play like Amelia, I guess. And then 2 Incold Bloods. Incold Blood is mostly there for Akaria decks, but here it's fine. Like if you like snag a Vulcan Enforcer with it and get the rest of them out of their deck, then that makes your future like Scrap Tanks and Gear Crunchers and stuff better. So it's just there as like 4th and 5th extra removal spells. And I did play against TJP twice in the tournament and won both of them. But I think I got very lucky to do so, and you are generally not a favorite to win that matchup.
TJP has been my kryptonite on the ETS this season, and historically is good against whatever deck I decide to bring. And every time I go to sideboard against it, I'm like, I have no idea what to do here. It just feels like everything is bad, but it looks like you found a very efficient game plan for that.
Yeah, it's passable. I mean, you kind of just hope they stumble on Influence because they're a 3-faction aggro deck.
That is the best way to win. That's the easiest way to win against that match.
Yeah, and then we have Skycrag, which I didn't expect to see much of, but it's always nice to have answers there. And you just take out the expensive cards and you put in cheap removal. Pretty self-explanatory. Argenport just wants some Cold Bloods, just extra answers to their Inquisitor's Blades on, what's his name? The 5/3 with Endurance and Quick Draw.
Crown Watch Trader.
Yeah, just extra move for a Crown Watch Trader that has an Inquisitor's Blade on it. Or, like, you don't really care about Tavrod unless they have Inquisitor's Blade. It, like, I've had, before Inquisitor's Blade came out, I just didn't care about it at all because you just deck them. But now that they can find Blade, you actually are scared because flying is how you lose. The only Argenport deck I played against in the tournament was playing Trader instead of Impending Doom, and was playing Auric Moonhammer instead of Inquisitor's Blade. So it's just like basically a buy. They had 8 flying units, and I had plenty to move for those. Praxis Tokens, I'd say this is the other unfavorable matchup, or like close to evenish, I guess. Like TJP is really bad. Felon is like fairly bad. Then like these various Obelisk decks feel close, maybe slightly unfavored. Everything else I feel very good against. So against tokens, I take out Madness and Combust because they just don't do anything. And I put in some removal for small guys. This has Ruin, but I cut the Ruins for Caleb's intervention at the last minute because there's always those games where you have like that 15-15 Scrap Tank, and Caleb's intervention can kill an Obelisk, but it can also get that 15-15 Scrap Tank in there for lethal sometimes. So I thought that the swap was worth it.
Yeah, I heard you talk about that on your stream last night.
Yeah, I don't think I ever thought to make a Grenadin with it. That's just not what the card is for in that matchup. Way better to just kill an Obelisk or save it for if they find an Obelisk. Interestingly, in the tournament, I did play against Praxis Tokens, but I did not board in the Sabotages because they were playing the 5-cost guy that pumped their team, Arcana Monitor. So I left in a couple of Madness instead of the Sabotage, and actually won a game by Madnessing the Arcana Monitor to pump my board of Grenadins. And
oh my god.
So that was pretty cool. I don't recommend playing Arcana Monitor or Praxis Tokens.
I, last week, actually, last Sunday or Tuesday, sometime early last week, I actually went ahead and built a version of your deck here. I took out the torches and added in Xenon Obelisk, your favorite card, because it was very necessary to have, I don't know, make your tokens even better. I don't know. It felt like since there was so much Feln from the tournament, I was like, let's try this out. Let's see how this is. And we actually won, you know, we had like a 70% win rate out of 10 games, you know, but
Yeah, I mean, Obelisk will certainly make your matchup against slow decks better, but I think those matchups are already great, and you don't need to splash a faction for it. If
Overall,
Obelisk was like Fire or Shadow, I would certainly put it in my sideboard. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. So then the last last deck you have here on your sideboard guide is Ikaria Blue.
Yeah, and this goes double for like normal like FJS removal pile. They're basically the same deck at this point. I put Eye Blue because that's slightly more frightening because they have Hailstorm, which is a card that can sort of interact with you. Makes you slow play scrap tanks and stuff. But yeah, we take out the Torches and the Madness and one of the Combust. Just we don't have removal. They play like 8 units and they all have Aegis. And then we just bring in our cards that interact with their cards. You know, Sabotage to get spells, In Cold Blood to get Ikaria, and then Treachery, the hot tech. What do we lose to? We lose to large flyers. What are large flyers weak to? Getting discarded before you get to 7 power. So you just save your Treachery for the turn before they Ikaria, and you tretch him, and it feels great. I even had a game against Tony G where I killed his Sword of Ikaria and took his Ikaria out of his hand with Treachery.
That's disgusting.
Real good. And then the Tripwire Guard is just like another way to pop and you just slash another guy. Like it's better than a Combust. You want to keep in a few Combust because sometimes you need to kill Ikaria with it, but in general you want to just have proactive cards. And then I guess the other matchups that like aren't listed here would be stuff like Praxis and Cambrai and such. Those like fairly popular decks, but they're not on here because you don't sideboard against them. Your main 75 is perfectly set up to just destroy them.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I'm happy to see the treacheries in your sideboard. Like Tripwire, granted, it's cool to finally see that card in a list in a tournament, let alone a list that's doing well, even if it is only in the sideboard. But Treachery, I played that card a little more than I probably should have back in set 1. And I don't know, I'm just happy anytime I see that card get played. Just the small things in life.
It's kind of underused, really. Like, anytime your opponent's deck relies on Ikaria, or like back in set 1, like you were saying, if their deck relies on Mystic Ascendant, like it's just an excellent answer that you can play proactively to a card that would otherwise 2-for-1 you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this Witching Hour card in your deck. It's a big feature of your deck. It's an important thing. You know, you kind of built your deck with that in mind to a certain degree. I've watched you play the deck a little bit, and you seem to lean a little bit heavier on getting your shadow influence in play. So let's talk about why Witching Hour is so important to this deck.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can play the deck without Witching Hour, but I like it for several reasons. And I actually enumerated these in an article I wrote for RNG Eternal last week, actually. I wrote about the deck, and then I played it, and then I won. How about that? I said that I would do it, and I did. But
that's some good promotion.
Yeah, I mean, so Witching Hour just gives you ultimate inevitability. Like, I like to play reactively and safe as much as possible. And when you have the Witching Hour in your deck, you are always going to win the late game. Because, like, against harsh rule decks, you just have, 12, 16 cards that demand an answer by themselves. They're never going to have enough sweepers or spot removal. Against, like, Praxis type decks, like token type decks, you just hang back, always be safe, leave back all of your blockers until you get a Witching Hour. And then you know they won't be able to deal with that because they don't play sweepers or ways to interact with all of these guys. You just poke it up to the flyer. The lifesteal one stabilizes you against burn. The deadly one stabilizes you against large ground guys. It makes it so you never have to make risky attacks because if the game continues to go on, at parity, you will always win. You never have to run out your scrappers on 5 and hope they don't remove a spell. You can always wait till they have 6 power. You never have to swing your scrap tank into a double block. You can just sit back and keep them on unable to attack. It's just incredible for that. And then
patience is a virtue.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned about always getting shadow, like. Yeah, so I noticed this when I was rewatching your cast of the top 8. But like, I would have a what's the color? Granite Wavestone in my hand, and I wouldn't be able to get a granite off of it unless I played Seek for Fire, and I would still Seek for Shadow, and that's because if you don't get a 1/1 out of your power, it's still a power. It still does its job. It still does what you put in the deck to do. Whereas if you don't get the 6 Shadow for Witching Hour, it's literally useless. And once you get stuck on 5 Shadow for a Witching Hour that's like cheap enough that you can otherwise cast one time, you never make that mistake of Seeking for Fire again. Like you just always get that shadow unless you have like a couple of Artist Favors, like 6 shadow in hand already or whatever.
I played a couple games just before this interview started on the ladder with the deck, and like turn 3-ish, I scout and I decide to bottom a Shadow Sigil. Now here we are, turn 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't play a Scrapper and activate it because I'm stuck on 5, and now I have 2 Witching Hours in hand. I'm like, what have I done? And then I drew it just on the last possible turn I could have. But yes, it is very important. I definitely overall, like when I play other decks, like Ikaria Blue or something, whatever, I try to, if I'm scouting or something, I usually, if there's an influence that I need, or like when I play Moment, if there's an influence that I'm going to need to win the game eventually, I'd rather be safe than sorry and just keep the influence. Most of the time, maybe more than I should too, but anyways,
yeah, I mean,
back to the
hold
Witching Hour.
a lot with decks like Ikaria Blue. But
Same.
Here, I think you just need Shadow. Like, you only need 2 fire in the whole deck, and you don't need a second fire till 7. Yeah, you'll find it.
Yeah.
And also, that bottoming the power thing, like, I even lost the game, or the reverse, not bottoming a card. Like, I even lost a game in the ETS to that. Like, I was playing against Flash's Sentinel Reanimator deck, and, like, on turn 1 or 2, I scouted, and I had up through my 5th power in my hand. I see a Madness on top. I'm like, oh, man, Madness is so good against a Stirring Sand deck. And so I keep it on top, and then I just, like, never found the 7th power for my Gear Cruncher and died. Like, having Wishing Hour and Gear Cruncher deck means that you will win the late game, you will not flood, and you can, like, be less greedy, I guess, with your scouts. Like, keep power number 5 on top in the early game or whatever, and you generally won't get punished because you won't ever run out of stuff to do.
Yeah, it can be a very power-intensive, power-hungry deck, for sure. So, Witching Hour, I feel like a lot of newer players, or a lot of players in general, probably just don't have the card. What would be some good replacements for it if you wanted to play this deck but don't want to craft the Witching Hours and don't want to splash another color or anything?
Yeah. You can certainly play Grinding without Wishing Hour, and you even get some benefits. Like, your power base gets a lot better. Like, you can cut, like, 4 Shadow Sigils or 4 Fire Sigils or whatever. Maybe only 3. Yeah, I think only 3. But, then you can kind of seek powers, like trim a power in total since your top end is less high. You get a little bit better against aggro because you get to play some Tripwire Grenadins or Annihilates or Suffocates or whatever you want. Like, you basically just add more removal and 2-drops, and it's like the deck is still very good. It's still fine. It's still Grenadin control. But the Wishing Hour will always hold a special place in my heart. I like super like off the beaten path, I guess, cards like that. Like, they're just. It's fun to me to do something different than what other people are doing.
It's kind of like an achievement unlocked type of moment.
Yeah, well, I think there is an achievement for winning with all the Pale Riders in play, actually.
There is. Yeah, you could even play like Spark Hatcher or something. You know, it's just a fine card. It's a 2-for-1.
I think that Tripwire is a little bit better. Oh, another thing you can do is you can play like a spicy one of like Caleb.
I have lost to that.
I've been Gear Cruncher into Caleb before. Like,
yes,
that is pretty absurd.
I'm like, well, there's no way I can lose here. I got these cards that are gonna prevent me from dying to this Gear Cruncher. It'll be fine. Caleb dead. Oh my god, what just happened?
Yep.
On the subject of like the deck as a whole being really good against sweepers, you have too many threats to remove that demand a board wipe, even Gear Cruncher, etc. That's actually how my team lost our winning in for the team Unified Draft tournament a couple weeks ago. Our deciding match was against a Gear Cruncher deck, and we just couldn't do it. They had about too many Dark Returns and too many Gear Crunchers, and we used one harsh rule on a turn we shouldn't have, and it ultimately cost us. Just because they just kept returning Gear Cruncher turn after turn after turn after turn. Like, that was it.
Yeah, and like, as absurd as Gear Cruncher is, that's not even the best card. Like, I think Stone Scar Scrapper is even better.
You get to draw so many cards. So, okay, here's another question here for you. One of the things that you live by in this game is making your opponent's plays bad. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so this is a huge level up moment for a lot of people. And like, a lot of time when I'm watching streams and stuff, I see people make this mistake, but it's just like, I have cards in my hand. I need to play them. And a lot of times not playing cards is the correct answer, especially with those sort of like grindy inevitability decks that I favor. Like, if your deck can afford to go long, oftentimes it's better to not play your card to find a better spot. And the two most obvious examples here are, if you have a Sandstorm Titan and you're playing against an Ikaria deck, you should play it going into their turn 7 so they can't play their Ikaria that turn. They have to remove the Titan first, otherwise the Titan just gobbles her up. Or, specific to Scrappy Hour against Feln, the turn before Blacksky Harbinger blows you out, play your Scrap Tank. If they play Blacksky Harbinger into your Scrap Tank, they kill your Grenadin, and now your Scrap Tank is just the Abyss. Like, they die to it in 1 or 2 hits. And that's one of the reasons why I think the deck isn't as bad against Feln as maybe people are just picking it up and getting bodied by Feln might think it is. Because, like, Scrap Tank dies to Hailstorm. It doesn't die to Hailstorm if you don't let it. Wait until you're at 6 or 7 power and can play it with a Torture Devour Up, and that'll save your Scrap Tank from a Hailstorm. Don't run out your Scrapper until you can sack 2 Grenadins, which means you don't want to put out too many Grenadins at once and get them all swept by Harbinger or Hailstorm. Like, if you have 2 or 3 Grenadins in play already, maybe don't play that Greninja drone assembly line. Wait till you find a Scrapper, sack the ones you have in play, and if they don't kill the Scrapper, then play some more Grenadins and sack those right away so your guys aren't exposed to removal. Play the Scrap Tank when you're exposed to removal already. Don't play 2 big threats at once so they can't double Hailstorm away your Gear Cruncher and your Scrapper. That kind of stuff. It's like, if you make your opponent's plays as awkward as possible, and this applies not just in Scrappy Hour versus Stone, this is in every matchup between basically every 2 decks. If you think about what your opponent can do that destroys you, and how you can make that not destroy you as hard, or make your opponent like anything that would make your opponent go, this feels bad, you should do that and make them make that bad play.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's great advice. That's definitely I haven't thought about that as much in this game, but in playing other card games like Magic, which I think most of us have all played, that's definitely something that I always came back to. That was definitely a thought process that I would have as well.
Yeah, and this is extremely similar to Magic, obviously. Any lessons you learn there carry over, basically. And vice versa, really.
Yeah. I've actually caught myself, I've been so immersed in Eternal at this point. When I go see my friends that are playing Friday Night Magic or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, so this guy has charge. Oh yeah, I love these Justice units. I'm like, wait. They're like, what are you talking? What do you charge? Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing all this great insight about Scrappy Hour with us. I think it's a really fun deck to pick up and play. I think a lot of people, when they look at the deck at first, they think of it as an aggro deck, and they don't realize it's a control deck, just because they see the Grenadin drones and assembly lines, but it is, in fact, through and through a control deck.
Yeah, it certainly looks weird. It looks like it doesn't have enough early game. Looks like it's really clunky, but in
what
practice,
is this deck trying to do?
Works.
Yeah,
I recommend that anybody who has the resources to craft these niche legendaries, like Scrap Tank and Gear Cruncher, don't go anywhere else. Anybody who has the resources should definitely give it a try. And like, you might lose a lot at first, because there are a lot of kind of obtuse lines, and there are a lot of long games you can make decisions that make you lose the game. But the payoff is well worth it, and it's probably the most fun that I've had playing Eternal ever. It's a delight to play.
A lot of fun, and definitely will bring your skills up as a whole. You'll learn a lot. So on that, before we move on, let's real quick. You've probably seen a lot of these art spoilers for they're supposed to be for set 4. Which art is your favorite card so far?
Well, so I mean, everyone's gonna say the like dinosaur sitting on the tree, but I'm more into the Lumen Umbran that's like holding a Sparky Ball and a Dark Wisp. I'm a big cool Xenon fan, so I'm really looking forward to Crest of Mystery and these Radiants.
I'm really curious as to what that card does. We were speculating that, you know, maybe it's like a Scrap Tank, or maybe it's like a Gear Cruncher or something in it, but it summons Dark Wisp. Maybe if you have more Shadow influence than Time influence, you get X amount of Dark Wisp. Maybe if you have more time, you get gain life or something, or who knows.
Ooh, or if you have, say, joined the worlds, you get both.
Oh man. No, even better, if you've joined the worlds, you get a world joiner. Let's just go all in here, right?
Oh man. So World Joiner is like the stereotypical, like, expensive, unplayable legendary, right?
Yes.
One time I was playing Scrappy Hour, and my opponent quadruple unstable formed their 5-drop into a World Joiner. And
oh no.
And it was like a 16-16 and killed me in one hit.
You're like, well, I thought I had this game locked up, but then out of nowhere.
Oh, it was glorious. So I've been world joined.
Yeah. My favorite of the new card arts is the Yeti. That looks like he's trying to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet or collect all the Chaos Emeralds or something.
Oh, you gotta love those Yetis.
They're so cute. I like tribal stuff personally. But I would like more payoffs, more reasons to play a tribal thing. There's not enough payoffs, I don't think. But that's a whole nother topic. Anyways,
if the payoffs are something other than +1/+1, then it's interesting. Like,
whoa, how dare you?
Like, Wump is +1/+1, but it also triggers Infiltrate, so it's somewhat interesting, right? Like, Wump plus Scouting Party is really cool.
Yes. Oh man, I love Wump. We need to make a second Wump at 2 costs. Just have 2.
Double Wump.
So awesome. Well, awesome. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else that you would like to discuss before you? Is there anything else you'd like to say? anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I mean, thanks for having me here on Platypus Island. I mean, the standard shills, I guess, right? Like, follow me on Twitter at LightsOutAce. Subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/LightsOutAce1. Upvote all of my posts on Reddit, LightsOutAce1. I don't know, just hop by my stream, right? Twitch.tv/RNG Eternal. And yeah, just have fun doing what you love. Eternal is great. You guys are great. Everything's great.
Yeah, I definitely love this game. It's so generous. It's so free to play. That's like the biggest. The game sells itself. I can't wait for us to get even more players once everybody realizes how generous and free to play this game really, really is. Like, I don't even play other games, any other card games or other games anymore. Like, my friends always want me to play like PUBG with them or something. I'm like, nah, I'm playing Eternal. You know, I'm not even streaming right now. I just want to play more Eternal. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't know. I got super into it like almost 2 years ago now, and I still am 2 years later. There's always more to discover. Like, there's just so many different decks and cards that you can put together. Like, the sets have been masterful, I think.
So do I. I keep thinking that maybe the metagame at this point is a little stale or something like that. But then a new deck pops up or I or someone else gets a new idea using a card in a different way than you've seen before. And, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. Can't say enough good things about Eternal. It's a fantastic game. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. Be sure, everyone, to join us on our regularly scheduled time live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for Unexpected Results, the Eternal podcast, where we'll go over the results of the ETS or whatever premier tournament happened that weekend. Or if there isn't one, who knows what we'll talk about. But hey, stay tuned and don't die.